Welcome to this session. I am going to be talking about a command center which is not necessarily manned by people. So, the operations command center. Before we get started, we have, as a company, OpsVeda has spoken to over 300 different enterprises over the past 13 months. Companies distributed across the globe, North America, Europe, Latin America. And what we learned was there was significant gap with respect to inventory. And there were also significant gaps with respect to order fulfillment. And the last mile of execution happened to be on spreadsheets. And these spreadsheets were creating significant margin pressures. And these margin pressures are also increasing as there are changes in customer expectations, demand fluctuations, and so on, and also changes in the economy with respect to inflation, etc. So, an operations command center becomes important. My name is Sanjiv Gupta. I'm the founder and CEO of OpsVeda, and I'm proud to have with me Greg.
I'm Greg Snipes. I'm the CFO and COO of a company called Royce Too. You probably don't know our company, but we're the exclusive licensee for socks. We distribute Dickies, Eddie Bauer, and socks across North America. So you may not know my company, but you know our brand. I've been in the supply chain for most of my 35 plus years. I started off at Hanes, spent some time at Ralph Lauren, and now I'm in a small company called Royce. I'm enjoying it. So thanks for letting me be here with you.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
So, in operations, we have realized that most companies over here in this conference, they all large enterprises, mid-sized enterprises, we all have ERP systems, certain other applications. We have also invested in significant business intelligence, significant data lake environment, and quite likely we have an advanced planning system. And these planning systems we have been implementing. We have been implementing SNOP, we have been implementing optimization, and this journey has continued while we have realized that there is significant execution gap. And this gap is what OpsVeda would like to talk about, and this gap is what I would love to hear from Greg, what your experience was.
Well, I think we've all got, as you said, we've all got these systems, but just imagine a scenario where you've got these very diligent, great production planners working through thousands of SKUs, and inevitably they miss one. You got demand, you have no production orders, and you find out too late. What's going to happen? You're going to have to air freight. It may be your hottest SKU on Amazon. So having a tool like OpsVeda that helps you find that through the command center can really mitigate or even offset any kind of risk you have.
So I said significant manual processes and the last mile being spreadsheets. More often than not, these spreadsheets are in and around managing your revenue. And Greg is CFO for Royce. So how was managing revenue and what kind of impact did you see from a revenue perspective?
Well, the biggest thing that OpsVeda can do for us is avoid expedites or avoid air freight. Make sure we increase our fill rates. And with all of by capturing issues early, identifying issues early, you have that ability. It's as much about cost avoidance as it is improving your cost.
Yeah. So while the supply chain practitioners have been busy implementing tools, what we find is that the daily, weekly, and monthly, with respect to managing your revenue, with respect to managing replenishment of goods either through manufacturing or from your suppliers, or with respect to managing allocations to give it from customer A to customer B, or with respect to managing inventory, too much inventory or too little inventory, or promotions, or collaboration with the supplier. The last mile, spreadsheets. We think this is a significant gap because these gaps is where we generate leakage in margin and potentially deferment of revenue. And essentially address this gap, what we have come up with is called as the Operations Command Center. The most important ingredient of this Operations Command Center is that it has to be standalone. It has to continuously evaluate demand, supply, inventory, and logistics. It has to continuously discover the opportunities that you have in your execution. It has to leverage the latest AI technology. It has to leverage machine learning. It has to leverage historical performance in order to predict the future. And that is the operations command center that helps drive organizations. Greg, your feedback.
Well, I mean, I think we all recently would have experienced the delays coming out of the Red Sea. Your shipper, everybody had that problem. Well, obviously, OpsVeda can't fix the problem, but it can tell you when those containers finally arrive, which container will generate the most revenue for you the fastest? What's your highest need? So if you're delayed and you've got 20 containers in port, tell me which one to go get first. Super helpful.
Thank you, Greg. So it's not about the planning tools that we're not discussing the efficacy of the planning tool. We are discussing the lack of efficacy of the process. We are not discussing the awareness of where the containers are or where the shipments are. That's what the visibility solutions provide. But really, from an organization perspective, to be able to manage, to be able to predict what I need to do today, to be able to predict what's going to go wrong this week or this month or this quarter, whether or not I'll be able to make my numbers, that's where the need of a command center comes in.
Yeah.
Any other example there from Royce?
Certainly now, the other thing, I mentioned it earlier, OpsVeda can tell me where my production is not going to arrive in time. So it gives me a better chance to get with the factory and say, can you ship earlier, as opposed to figuring it out later in the process and putting something on an airplane. And when you make socks, putting things on an airplane is not a very good idea. It's quite painful.
So this command center is orchestrated through a platform, and this platform takes data from a variety of data sources. It continuously understands your demand, your supply, your inventory, your logistics. It continuously links all of this data and presents information in the form of Juni, in the form of opportunity apps, in the form of real-time live storyboards. And the trick to make something real-time is to not have to run the report, which means it is continuously getting updated. If you have a complete view of your operations on a continuous basis, you are going to consume that solution through the lens of revenue management, order fulfillment, through the lens of supply management, procurement, through the lens of inventory, through the lens of logistics, through the lens of manufacturing, through the lens of what the CFO needs. So the idea of an always-on, continuously live command center is to preempt any margin leakage, is to address what might impact your revenue, and it is to predict and accelerate certain decisions. So acceleration of decisions is what eliminates the leakage. Now, which of these solutions does Royce use?
Everything but manufacturing. So when Sanjiv and I first started talking about implementing OpsVeda and building the command center, we were in the middle of our ERP implementation, and I looked at him like, he's crazy. Do you really think I'm going to do this now? But throughout the demo, what he showed me is how you can fill the gaps with this tool. So in the middle of an ERP implementation, they stood up our instance in about 30 days. And over time, we kept adding more and more functionality to it. It's a great quick startup, and as you know, if you're implementing an ERP, you miss things. So having that command center was super helpful.
So how many of you in the audience might have an ongoing ERP upgrade plan or some other planning system plan? And this is not the first upgrade. We have done upgrades in the past. And quite often, the message from the technology team is that, hey, I have an ERP upgrade planned and we will get to all the enhancements at a later date. So we heard in the keynote today, making sure that you have got multi-threaded value props and making sure that you can deliver fast enough, continuously deliver good value. That has been part of the thought process at OpsVeda, and we try to make sure that customers get their success in the first 30 days.
Yeah.
Because once you get the customer successful in the first 30 days, you have created enough value that sustains the journey forward. I would like to take a moment to explain the company journey itself. So ultimately, we are bringing the Operations Command Center to market, and the Operations Command Center is fundamentally driven by trying to create revenue and margin lift through continuous optimization of your operations. If you were to do continuous, I would like to tell the audience that we create 5% in operating margin improvement. Greg, you are the CFO, so what has been your experience?
You certainly do see operating margin improvement. As I said earlier, it's either going to be true cost savings or it's a cost avoidance. Because when you're starting adding in, as I said, you put your socks on airplanes to catch up, you're going to bleed margin all day long. So the 2 to 5%,
Yeah.
it's achievable for sure.
And we are talking execution. We're not talking planning, we're not talking systems, we're not talking visibility, we're talking execution-oriented real-time applications that are focused on order fulfillment, that are focused on supply, inventory, logistics, manufacturing, and so on. OpsVeda is a cloud platform on AWS. It's a full platform which has got integration with a variety of data sources. It has got a variety of solutions which come alive as data comes into OpsVeda, and the engagement of the user with the system. Of course, there are users who log into the application, and we have a booth over there. You're welcome to visit and take a look at the application. Of course, people log into the application in order to fix the outcomes, but ultimately it is real-time exception management, getting to the user. In today's day and age, the system needs to get to the user and tell the user what needs attention, rather than the users coming to the system, right? So that's part of the process, and it's a complete platform. We were started about 15 years ago, and we are a global company. And some of the customers who derive value from the Operations Command Center, we got our start in the industrial space, high-tech customer space, but lots of customers in the apparel space, just like Greg, from Ralph Lauren to Centric Brands to Lee & Fung to Royce to Meridian Brands,
Hanes.
and so on, Hanes, and so on. Okay. Anything else to add?
Well, I think one thing from a CFO perspective is how if you're presenting to your CFO, how do you justify things like OpsVeda? What I've found is I have a very lean operations team. We've added a couple of supply chain analysts through the abilities of the tools. And so when you add the supply chain analyst power and then the benefits of the margin, avoiding margin erosion, improving margin, improving revenue, the business case is pretty straightforward and it should be pretty easy to get past.
Thank you, Greg. Well, with that completes our presentation. If there are any questions, we can take some questions.